Well, hello everyone and welcome to Zimbabwe here at the Premier African Minerals Zulu Lithium project. We are broadcasting live. We are stationed just outside the lab area. As you can see behind me, there is part of the plant that is part of the flotation plant. So thank you all very much for joining us today. I'll do a quick summary of the trip so far. We arrived a few days ago. I've been very, very impressed from the moment I arrived, really, from the wonderful accommodation I was given, the small house, the small dwelling that I've had while I've been here. Great hospitality from everyone here at Prem. We spent a lot of time at the plant. We've covered the plant in an awful lot of detail. A video of that will be coming out later. I had a midnight trip down to the dam last night with George, which was very nice. Not much to see, but we will be covering the dam and the resource area, the pit area, tomorrow. We'd also like to get some interviews with some Prem staff and also with some community leaders. And of course you saw the camp, and we'll try and get some video and an interview with the geologist around the core shed as well. So I'm here with George Roach, and here he is. Welcome, George. Thank you very much for having me. And as I said, I'm super impressed. I mean, it's an incredible size, isn't it, this plant? The construction that's gone on here is, I can only think of one word: awesome. What do you think?
Well, Mark, thank you very much indeed, and it's nice to have you here by invitation rather than me where you would normally be. Yeah, look, it is. I don't know whether to be terrified when I look at this thing or to be proud of it. I think it's a hell of a statement for the company. I think it's a huge statement for the country as well. It's no more a pilot plant than fly to the moon, to be quite frank about it. I think we've got to forget about that. This is a full-blown production facility. It covers an extensive area. It's probably the better part of 350, 400 meters from front-end crushers to back-end bagging plant. And I mean, I've just walked away from the bagging plant at the moment. We've been bagging concentrate coming out of the spodumene flotation section, and yeah, it's if I think that as little as 6-7 months ago, we would have been sitting in the bush wondering where the next snake was going to come from, to be quite frank with you. So it's wonderful to have got to this stage.
Yeah.
And I'm really pleased about it.
Well, of course, a momentous day indeed, because as you've just said, you did press spodumene and it's gone into a bag. I haven't actually seen it going into a bag because I've been here setting up for this, but I did get video of the spodumene cake coming down, and I've got a very small clip that I just want to show everyone now.
The filter press itself in operation.
That is the filter press itself in operation, yeah, and that is the spodumene falling down into the bin that will then be augured into bags. So I mean, none of this was planned. I know people are wondering about my trip out here, and we've talked about it for a while. We talked about it when you were in London, and it's been timed so that there's enough to see. That's what we said, that there'll be lots to see. But the team have worked incredibly hard. I mean, I arrived here and people sort of knew who I was. You know, I guess they'd seen me on the YouTube or something. And I think everyone's been very keen to get to that point today that we're actually able to see that. And I will, of course, cover the spodumene going into bags, but a momentous day. It must be.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's an achievement, isn't it? You must be feeling elated.
Like, as I said to you, I don't know quite how to deal with where we are. It's been such an incredibly stressful and very, very busy process, but immensely rewarding to be where we are. So yeah, deeply appreciative that we can be where we've got to today.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I'm going to bring in our first guest, that is Godfrey. So he's a director of Prem, isn't he? Yes. Do you just want to do a bit of an introduction to Godfrey, and then I'm going to bring him in and we'll talk about a few things with him.
Sure, and I'm very pleased that Godfrey is able to join us. Godfrey is a significant and very senior businessman in Zimbabwe. He's given me a huge amount of guidance. He is a very professional director, certainly quick to pull me up where I need to be pulled up. which is also necessary from time to time. But Godfrey's got an acute understanding of the industry we're in. His own business is not that far away from the kind of thing that we do, and has made a huge contribution to me and to this company as we go forward.
Excellent.
So Godfrey, to you a special thank you for your patience and support over this period.
Well, Godfrey is here now, and hopefully the internet connection is stable. Welcome, Godfrey. So thank you, George, for the introduction there. I know you're based over, you're not able to join us in person, but I know you're very much in tune, you work very closely with the government and local authorities. Could you perhaps give us an idea of, first of all, the appetite and the encouragement from the government for projects such as these kind of mining projects in Zimbabwe?
Well, thanks, Mark. And I just wanted to say that's the first compliment that I've received from George in the last 10 years of working with him on the board of PREM. So I think you should do more of these interviews like that. I just wanted to say one comment before I answer your specific point. I think you asked George how he felt about where we are now. And I think it's better that someone like me should answer that. I was there in October last year, and there was nothing. When I say there was nothing, there was just a small campsite with a lot of geologists and drilling guys running around. I was then back about a month ago, and the transformation that I saw was short of spectacular. And I say so with the context of the challenges of operating in Zimbabwe. You know, we do run businesses here in Zimbabwe, and we have challenges that range from small little things to really huge, significant problems, both on the ground, regulatory environment, rules changing, and all sorts of things. Some things that are difficult to explain to our outside audiences and stockholders and the stakeholders. So all I would like to say, therefore, is that George has really led from the front. He has lost some weight during that process. I don't think he's got any more hair left to lose, but he's really worked very hard. And from a PREM board point of view, we are incredibly pleased and proud of what has been done in the last 6 months. And I actually would like to challenge anyone to say, if anything of this size of magnitude of operation has ever been done in Zimbabwe in such a short space of time, it really has been an incredible performance on the ground. Now, the question that then arises is that there is a perception, rightly or wrongly, that is very difficult to operate in Zimbabwe. And I guess there are some challenges like in other jurisdictions. And I think one of the roles that I've played on the PREM board since joining it in 2013 has been to aid that local understanding and networking on the ground that is necessary and critical. And I've tried to share that with my colleagues on the board, and also particularly with George as the CEO. We tend to have sometimes very lengthy telephone calls, and sometimes when we do meet, we also go right into the evenings, just discussing and trying to understand the challenges. I think the bottom line is that if you look at where PREM is with that particular project, it started off with the issuance of that EPO that was signed by the president, because under the rules in Zimbabwe, only the president can sign an EPO. And I think that, to me, is the proof of the pudding, in the sense that even at that level, government fully understands and appreciates the role that companies like PREM can bring into the Zimbabwean mining sector. I think you hear the government promoting a $12 billion US mining sector over the next couple of years. And projects like ours are calibrated to be part of that program. And therefore, since then, the challenges that we have encountered on the ground, and there are many, have all been resolved expeditiously, if I may say so. This is the reason why, in such a short space of time, we have been able to put together such a massive project, taking into account all the environmental issues, customs rules, regulations, local community engagements, and so on and so on and so on. So we really have pushed from both ends, from the top and from the bottom of our stakeholder base, to try and make sure that we do this. Only a couple of weeks ago, I was down there at the mine, and I was able to join George and his management team in participating in a community welcome ceremony where the local chief
Okay.
and his people who are directly affected by the mine were there over a 2-day celebration, feast as it were. And it wasn't as elaborate and as exquisite as the one I saw over the weekend at Westminster Abbey, but the spirit was certainly higher in that locality of ours. And that, I think, testifies to the fact that PREM has been formally accepted into the community at government and local leadership level. But that particular feast was now acceptance of PREM at what we call in Zimbabwe the traditional leadership level, which is critical because that's where the vast majority of the people we interact with day to day are. And I think we were welcomed, and the celebrations are, as I said, a testament to that welcome. I'm sure we will still come across a few more challenges as we go along, but we are quite pleased that the project has started on a good note. The impact is being felt at both central government level, local government level, and as I said, a traditional leadership level, which covers the whole
Well, that's
structure of the governance system in Zimbabwe.
Well, that is very good to hear. Thank you very much for all of that information. I was aware today that actually the personal secretary to the president was here on site driving around. And George has told me that the president will visit this site at some point. So this is being talked about all the way at government level. This is very significant for the country, the Zimbabwean country, isn't it?
Well, it is. We are, in actual fact, in discussions, as I said, with the office of the president with a view to scheduling a visit for him to come down and see for himself what has been done and what happened since the issuance of that EPO. And I'm sure we will be highlighting to him that of all the EPOs that he has signed in the last 2 years, I'm not sure if there's any that has moved to where we are as PREM. So that's something that we will certainly be pointing out to him, and we hope that the support that was given from the start will continue to do so.
Well, thank you very much. That's really good to get your insights. Thank you so much for joining us this evening live from where you are. I'd like to thank you for your time, and you feel free to stick around for the rest of the broadcast. But for now, thank you very much, Godfrey, for your time, and I look forward to seeing that president visit when it's appropriate. So thank you, Godfrey. So I mean, George, yeah, that's pretty significant, isn't it? This is going all the way to the top, isn't it? This is making a huge difference.
Look, it's a statement. Godfrey has said it, that so often in exploration, exclusive prospecting orders and large license areas are given and very little happens, and it leaves the state in a difficult position and so on. And I think we've set an example here as to what you can do within a reasonably short period of time. I'm not saying that every EPO ends up the same way, but in this instance, a lot of factors came together to help us get to that point. Yeah, so I'm very, very pleased about that. I may just mention on the lighter side that I think my ceremonial rock that I was given from the community has more significance to me than the one Charles sat on the other day.
Right. Well, I saw your ceremonial rock. People did see that ceremonial rock. We put a little video
Yes.
out and I talked about the story. Very
Okay.
important. And I didn't get the full story out. I sort of said it was very important for a ceremony, but you donated some livestock, didn't you?
Well, it's yes, it's an exchange. It's a cultural situation because Prem Zulu is effectively being given or taking something from the local community and the local chief, and it's right that something should be given, and that was what the ceremony was about. So it was a ceremony in terms of which there was good food, there was some cattle that were exchanged on a almost a Lobola type basis, and in turn the ceremonial presentation of the mineral, what we're going to be doing here. So very important and very, very symbolic.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, thank you for that. So we'll go and talk about the plant now, and it's very important that it's not called a pilot plant. I've been very careful in my recordings to try and avoid pilot plant. It's just a force of habit, but it's not. It's a plant. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But what I'd like to do right now is just run a quick video. We'll take a sip of water and we'll be back very shortly. Well, what a video that is, and that video has been created by another cameraman who's been on site working with a company who are producing a longer documentary for Premier African Minerals and Stark on what an amazing case study. But you really saw there the plant in all its glory. I'd like to now welcome some other guests. We've got Jeffrey Madison, who is the CEO of Stark Resources, who's joining us now live from Germany. So hello Jeffrey, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
I'm on the show today.
Our apologies, I think you're muted there. Just say hello again. No, I've got you, you're live.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, no, thank you very much for having us on the show, Mark. Good afternoon, George. Pity that I can't be there, but be that as it may, good to have you aboard.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I know we've spoken about it before, but from Stark's point of view, I mean, going from the initial idea, the initial concept, the initial proposal, through to design, through to actually manufacturing, through to construction. I mean, how long was it ago, George? You said, what, 12 months ago? It was a bush, it was just bush, and now here we are today.
Yeah, a little more than 12 months ago.
No more than 12 months ago.
And
really, it's rapid progress in about 6 months, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, from Stark's point of view, Jeffrey, how does that make you feel?
So, I mean, maybe taking a step back, George came to see us in December of 21 and said, no, well, he's got this lithium project that he'd like us to look at. Maybe it needs some sorting, maybe he wants to build a plant, he wants to do a DFS. Jaco and I had a chat and said, no, well, we'll give this a shot. And sort of it rapidly accelerated into the development of a DFS. And then from the DFS, it was clear based on the spiking lithium prices and the intent that Prem had to actually put the asset into production, that an alternative approach was required. And between Stark and the Prem team, the idea of, I guess, it started with a pilot plant, but then it sort of morphed into a production facility, and the concept was born. And I mean, as George said 6-7 months ago, I mean, we were sitting in the bush out there. I mean, it really was that way. And I think we concluded the transaction somewhere around June or July of last year, and we've been working tirelessly since then. And it's very proud, or it's a proud day for us all to see what's been achieved. And it's been very stressful, as George has put out. It's been there have been many challenges along the way, and to see the first spodumene come out today is it's a watershed moment for the project, for the team, for Prem, and obviously, of course, for Zimbabwe.
I mean, you must be elated to hear that news today, and you talk about it being stressful work. Of course, I've seen a lot of your team while I've been here, and they are basically working 12-hour shifts. They are then going back, getting a shower, and they're sleeping in tents. I mean, they're not rubbish tents, they're quite nice tents, but they're sleeping in tents, and then they're repeating that day after day after day, and they're not going home for quite a while. And I was speaking to them earlier today. They're all super excited that we're at this stage today. But I mean, a lot of work has gone into this. And how have you sort of managed that with your team and assembled that? And that's an achievement in itself, to just keep a team like that motivated through a hot days working here, dusty conditions, you know, even just sitting here, you know, I can feel my hands are dry. They get dry quite quickly. You know, people must get exhausted. It must be a challenge in itself just to keep, you know, your team all motivated to do this.
Absolutely, Mark. Absolutely. I mean, the team that we've put together in the organization is sort of a multi-commodity, multi-experience team. One can, of course, always do better, but overall, if we look at the team, what the team has achieved over the past 9 months, it's really quite spectacular. And the sacrifices that the team need to make, particularly individuals that miss weddings, birthdays, funerals, family events, you know, the time that's lost. And I guess, I mean, again, taking a step back, all the consumers of all the products that we all, you know, even the electronics that we are using now to communicate over, using lithium as an example, and the sacrifices that individual people and families make, it's sometimes it's overlooked, of course.
It is definitely overlooked indeed. And you mentioned challenges there. I wonder if you can speak to some of the challenges that you faced. Maybe George, you can talk to that as well, and some of the challenges that have been faced in the construction of this plant, and really how you've overcome them.
I guess, Mark, the overall project is a major challenge in itself. The project was really, it was a drilling campaign that turned into putting a mine into production, and there just simply was no time. We didn't have all the data, and it really boils down to the relationship that Prem and Stark have with one another. It's George and us go back, I guess, the better part of nearly 10 years now. We did a project some time ago on a it was a RHA tungsten project where we implemented a small modular type sorting solution. And just looking at the project itself, the key here is not so much the individual challenges, but actually trying to resolve those as quickly as possible. And the type of plant that we've designed is flexible in such that it's possible to change out equipment or adapt or modify. And it's the continuous development of the flow sheet while we are building and executing the project that is, of course, naturally a challenge. Maybe talking to specific challenges, things like transportation over the silly season, December was difficult. There was load shedding in South Africa. There were chip shortages, so we had a small anecdote on the side. We had a PLC system that we wanted to put in place, which was unfortunately not available. So we went with an alternative, and that alternative was, of course, the road less traveled. and that's created a lot of grey hair, less hair for George, as Godfrey put out there. And I mean, there's just been a whole host of issues. No single issue is insurmountable, but overall, all the issues combined together have been very difficult. But now on the eve of producing spodumene on an industrial scale, it sort of lightens the load, I guess.
Yes, absolutely, it will lighten the load. And I picked up on what you said there about the flexibility or the modular design, and as I was doing the sort of walkthrough, if you like, of the plant with Jakub, he was explaining to me the modular sort of setup, and that helps for transportation of the conveyors to get them to site. There's a special design, it's not a lattice, it's a tubular design. And I do want to ask a question. I'll put this to George, because I know people will be quite keen to know this. That kind of idea of modular, does that mean you can add to it fairly easily, as and when appropriate, as and when perhaps is necessary or needed?
It goes back more to the ability to get something in situ quicker. That was really what underlay this in the beginning. The secondary benefit is that extensions to the plant, add-ons, increasing capacity in different areas, and so on, should all be a lot easier to accomplish with what we have as a base now.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for that. What I'd like to do now is bring in a big shareholder in Premier African Minerals. Many will know him as Snow King. His name is Tony. His name is also Tony. Sorry, we lost camera there for a second, but it's back now. This is live broadcasting. First time we've done this. And I must say, I'm super impressed we're actually doing this. The IT is incredible, really. But I'm going to bring in Tony now. Tony, hello, welcome onto this live stream. You should be able to hear me. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you for...
No, it's a pleasure to have you on, Tony, and I know you represent a lot of the shareholders. You sort of live and breathe Prem, don't you? And I know you've been very active in the group. I mean, let me just first of all say to you, how are you feeling as such a long-term shareholder in Prem on today's day and the news that you've heard today?
Well, you're quite right, Mark. I sort of, in a WhatsApp group, we have about 30% of the shares of Prem, and we've been through the hard times, and what we hear today is just incredible news. We can't. We, like probably some people, didn't believe you would get to this stage of actually, before summer of 2023, being able to produce spodumene. What Prem with Stark has achieved, and with the community and the locals, to be able to go from nothing to this is remarkable. And although we're shareholders and we want to see success, I think we want the success also for the area and the country. And this is just such brilliant news. And so many people are looking forward to what you're going to show us, or have shown us today.
Yes, indeed. Well, certainly we will hopefully be showing some of that later on. I believe it has actually been bagged, so we might be lucky enough to see some of that later on. Before we let Jeffrey go, I wondered, do you have any couple of sort of questions that you might like to put to Jeffrey, Tony, maybe that you picked up from shareholders in relation to the building of this plant?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing achievement, but does this mean Stark are now going to get inundated with requests to build people these lithium plants around the world? And could it be that if we ever need a second or third plant at Zulu, that Stark will be too busy with so much demand? I think you're on mute again.
Apologies. There we go. Tony, to answer you there, we would hope, of course, that we would secure additional orders to build plants around the world. But just as you've stated here that you've been with Prem through the dark times, we've also been with George and Prem through the smaller projects. And our commitment not only to the Zulu project, but there are other projects that Prem is involved with directly and indirectly, would of course always take preference in terms of the deployment of resources and technology.
Well, that's good to hear. And do you feel you've learned from what we've done at Zulu, what you've done in creating this plant, for a second plant or other plants? Do you think things can be, I mean, they've been built very quickly here, but do you think for further plants you'll have learned some things which can make things even quicker for other plants?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean the lessons learned. We will of course run an exercise now together with Prem. Lessons learned. There's a multitude of challenges that have been overcome that can be engineered out or planned out or designed out. And put into perspective, we hadn't even had a fixed flow sheet when we started ordering long lead items. So the courage of conviction between both organizations, and such that one is expecting a plant to produce X amount of tonnage, both feed in and product out, and of course that requires to be designed. Normally one would have detailed P&ID, you'd have all the engineering done, you'd have a feed study, you'd have a DFS, and all of that was sort of done out of hand, not on a whim, but I mean on a well-educated guess. And of course it's engineered along the way. And of course what we will see now is all those learnings culminating in a flow sheet that is adapted to process the pegmatite type deposits of the region. And as Prem would want to expand out, of course it's natural that one would have a sort of a shorter road to the conclusion of a project. And one notable point here, which hasn't been discussed much, if Prem is going to be the first company in the world that's going to have a sorting solution that's in place, it's actually going to identify the spodumene ore directly. So it's not a proxy. You're directly going to be identifying and recovering spodumene and pushing that to the flotation sections themselves. So Premier, I mean, moving from an exploration company and actually the transformation from caterpillar into a chrysalis and into the butterfly that now flies into becoming a lithium producer, is really going to profit from this. Mark and I were chatting earlier today. A lot of the other junior companies and even mid-cap and majors drum up their share price, and they are promoting projects and they're looking at drill cores. Prem has done it. So in less than 12 months, we are producing lithium. So people can, all the haters and all the trolls that are out there, they can say what they like, but the fact of the matter is it's a live stream from site and there's spodumene that's coming out. So of course things can be better, but well, it's easy to be a hater when you're just looking and licking a drill core.
Absolutely. Can I ask about the lead time for critical, if you want to build a second plant? I noticed Pilbara were ordering lots more equipment, and these big companies are obviously gearing up for more production over the years. But lead time for critical items for a second plant, are we finding there's still a bit of a big lag to get things, or can it all be brought in within a year?
Things can definitely be brought in within a year, and of course all the learnings of course now allow one to order equipment sooner. The transportation difficulties through the supply chain around the world have eased a lot. The chip shortages are starting to ease. The decision to use mobile and modular type equipment, of course, has been a major accelerant to the deployment of the plant. And I guess if one was to build a mega project where you had to do it on a sort of in a traditional way, one would struggle to deploy rapidly. But I believe in the type of approach, and if one is looking at plants that are sort of up to 6,000 or 10,000 tons a day, one would be able to still deliver those in less than a year.
That's great.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Tony, for doing sort of my job. It's a real big help for me. I've got to manage quite a few things here. Well, I think we can thank Jeffrey very much for his time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's very nice to have different guests on the live stream. So again, I will tell that you can hang around, or you can leave and get on with your evening. But thank you very much, Jeffrey. That's the CEO of Stark there, for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Mark. Okay, George.
Okay, right. The bit that everyone's waiting for, George, the Q&A, and we're going to focus this Q&A really around the plant. And we've got another section where we'll talk about the resource, the EPO, and all that nice stuff. But let's go and find out what people want to know about the plant. Now, Tony, have you got anything to start me off while I try and pull up my question list? Do you want to start firing away?
Yes, I can. Yeah, George. So, George, we're hearing from Stark that the equipment that they're boasting they've put in is really sort of leading edge. Does that mean that you can extract more lithium from the ore, down to sort of lower grades, even below 0.5%? Is it that good that you can do that?
Tony, yes. There are a couple of elements to answering that question. The first is that the main pegmatites that we are mining at Zulu are predominantly spodumene. They do have some lepidolite, but they do not have petalite in the main ore body that we're mining right now. So the process that we're able to follow is an easier one. We are able to identify using, in our instance, we'll be using UV-based sensor or sorting to identify spodumene-rich areas within the run-of-mine feed for processing. That means that we will be upgrading before we get to the mill, and upgraded material will be going into the flotation circuits. Theoretically, there's more spodumene going in, and in practice it means that a cut-off grade within the pegmatite is possibly not even applicable. At the moment, we're looking at taking entire pegmatite ore bodies and putting all of them at the plant. So we're not trying to apply a 5 or a 2 or a whatever cut-off grade it may be, because it's not really necessary. The sorting is dealing with it. So that adds other efficiencies as well. And yes, that kind of technology helps there quite significantly.
Oh, that's super. George, what sort of, we're just starting to produce now. What sort of production do you think you're going to peak at with your current equipment you've got?
Okay, so Tony, there are a couple of things. Let me comment on that. First of all, we saw that spodumene was available and was floated in the plant a good several weeks ago. Getting to the stage where we are bagging and having sufficient to really start contemplating when our first exports are going to be is a significant step forward now. I had hoped that we would be at that stage late in April. We didn't, but we are at the point now where we have concentrate coming out of the spodumene flotation section in bags, and that takes us to a completely new level. And with that, I'm really pleased. In terms of where this will go to, I can say to you that the anticipated ability of the flotation plant to float material sees us at an initial design capacity of approximately 7 tons per hour from the spodumene circuit, but with an ability in the plant to go quite a bit higher than that. That's going to take fine-tuning and fine development of the circuit as we go forward. We have a lot of work to do in the optimization phase, and I really don't want to understate that at the moment. There's a lot of work to be done still. We are all working tirelessly, and that's why we're all flat out at the moment, is in optimizing the circuit to maximize how much we can get out of it. So I'm reluctant to give a number as to what I believe we'll be doing, but I'm very happy to say, as I have, what the capacities and abilities of the circuit are. So our original target of not less than 4,000 ton a month, which has been out there in the public domain for some time, I don't anticipate difficulties with that once this is fully optimized. Is there an ability to go above that? Yes, the circuit has the design and the capacities to do it. And as and when and if we achieve that, I'll be very proud to come to the market and tell them all about it.
Now that sounds great, George. Just another question: what's coming out at the other end? What we're hearing is likely to be spodumene. Pardon my ignorance. Does that have to be tested before it goes into the bags, or has it already been tested as it comes out?
The process that we have in the plant has an inline sampler, and all material that goes into the into the filter press to get the water out and give us the cake is going through a sampler, and we can randomly select material from that sampler that then goes into a laboratory and then gets tested. So are we going to test every individual bag? No, I don't anticipate that with 4,000 odd bags a month, as it were, or more. We anticipate reaching a level of comfort with the inline sampler, and that will determine the grade and the qualities and so on.
Right. Mark, I don't know if you've got any other questions at the moment?
Yes, well, I can. No, absolutely. I can see some questions that we had sort of sent in before. What are you aiming? You're aiming to produce about 4,000 tons a month. Is that correct?
That was the number that we originally set out with this plant. But the flotation side of this plant, the milling side, these components have a capacity to go higher. It's going to take fine-tuning, optimization. It's going to take a period of time to develop this to the point where we really can run at a maximum. So first target was obviously to see spodumene. We saw that a little while ago. We've now got some spodumene or material coming out of the spodumene flotation section into a bag. That's a great step. We now continue with the optimization, and behind me this plant is operating. It's continuing to produce concentrate. The concentrate is continuing to be filtered and continuing to be bagged. That will be ongoing. And the quantity is only going to increase as we optimize and as we get the circuit fine-tuned and to the maximum.
So you could increase above 4,000 tons without any expansion physically?
Yes, I believe we can. And the plant has those capacities very definitely to go above. I'm not providing guidance when I say that. I'm simply saying that the plant has the capacities to do that, subject to ore, subject to various other considerations.
Okay. Do you know about the sort of the grade and when you'll be able to get an idea of what grade you're looking at here?
Well, it needs an analysis. Material has been collected. We're sitting in the lab area, and it's going to go into the lab, and it'll get fully dried off, and it'll go through its various analytical processes and so on. The spodumene is present in the ore body. The flotation plant is, I believe, performing well, and I don't anticipate any difficulties in achieving a really good grade of spodumene, and possibly a technical grade of spodumene as well.
Okay. Well, we were talking earlier, weren't we? And you said that there's a market for what's come off today.
Oh yeah. Look, let me say that there are two components to this flotation plant. There is a mica/lepidolite component, and the material that comes out from that is going to contain a significant quantity of lithium as well. And there is a market for lepidolite. It will be bought. whatever one produces from a spodumene flotation circuit is saleable. What determines the price is the percentage of spodumene as opposed to other minerals and any impurities that is in it. Now, the analysis will very quickly tell us what that is.
Okay.
And as we go forward, if this is not completely free of impurities, we'll upgrade and we'll sort out whatever we've got to do to get it free of impurities. We don't anticipate that there are any issues at all. Our test work showed us no issues, so the proof will be in the pudding, as it were,
Indeed.
when
Well,
this goes through.
it is called the cake, isn't it? Which is I thought was quite nice.
Indeed, it is. It's
Yeah.
a full trade cake that
Yeah.
comes out. Yep.
And in terms of then the first shipment, or the first when the truck might first turn up, will you wait for a certain point in time before you sort of give the go-ahead for trucks that can start turning up and taking it away?
Yeah, I'd like to break the shipment down into fairly meaningful components. In terms of logistics, the initial shipment will be using flatbed trucks, which will go from Zimbabwe down to a warehousing facility in Johannesburg in South Africa to be containerized, and will then go from there. The vehicles can carry approximately 34 tons per vehicle. So we're probably talking about 5 or 6 vehicles a day is the kind of situation.
Okay.
And we will batch this into logical shipment samples or shipment quantities of somewhere between 500 and 1,000 tons per shipment. I think that makes sense in terms of a quantum to go at a time.
Okay. And are you contractually obliged to make a shipment at a certain point in time for the current agreement with Zulu?
We did agree that our production initially would all go to Zulu, and we did indicate to them that we targeted between 3,500 and 4,000 ton a month, and we did indicate to them that we had hoped that we would be able to start this from as early as March. We have no particular issues at all contractually unless we fail to ship by the end of May, and I anticipate that we're going to be shipping by the end of May.
You anticipate you're going to be shipping by the end of May?
Absolutely.
Excellent. When would you hope to have regular shipments, or is it a bit too early to talk to that yet?
I'd like to have the first shipment in a week to 10 days,
The first shipment
to
in a
be
week.
perfectly frank.
But in terms of getting regular shipments, when would you like to be in that
Oh.
kind of status?
Now, the next 2 weeks.
Oh, in the next 2 weeks you want to get into that. Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. Tony, do you want to come back in for a moment while I check through the list that I was sent?
Yeah. So George, if the trucks are 34 tons, so we're roughly speaking, are we saying in a week's time you'll have, enough to fill quite a few trucks? Is that what you're looking for? And then sending them on the way
That's-
after a week?
Yes.
So we're very close, isn't it?
It's exactly what I'm looking for that in approximately, let's say, a week to 10 days. I'm looking to be at that stage. I haven't got trucks lined up now, and I haven't got that much product lined up now. But now that we're at the stage that we're at, that's what I am hoping and anticipating.
Yeah. George, to get the production's going at the moment at a certain level, but do you have to stop it to test a lot and refine things, or can you just continue to produce and just slowly increase the output?
Tony, there are components of this circuit that are running continuously. Behind me, the flotation section is running continuously. If I go right up to the front end, the crushers don't have to run continuously. We can produce enough in stockpile within an 8 to 10 hour window. The milling section of the plant and the initial screening of material to get to the right particle size is the component that has taken most optimization and most effort. The components have the capacity to deal with the tonnages, in fact, far more than the tonnages that we want. It has been a case of attending to the optimization to make sure the right particle size in the right quantity is delivered to the flotation circuits. And we are improving and getting there with every day, almost on an hourly basis. So yes, there is some variation and some testing going on there, but it's really testing to improve throughput, not to see if we can put material through the plant. The two are completely different. This is a throughput issue, nothing more at the moment.
And George, you mentioned the other day that you were pleased with the weathering of the material you're getting out the ground to put into the plant. And forgive me for being ignorant, but I don't quite understand. A lot of people don't understand what you meant by the weathering or lack of weathering of the material of the ore. Could you help us with that a little?
Okay. Yes, of course. All right. So Tony, I smile because the pit that we are extracting material from has given us a huge amount to feel very encouraged about. From one point of view, the near surface material that's exposed to water and to other weathering events sometimes is quite it breaks down. It's not necessarily a solid, competent piece of rock, and often the mineral is leached and you lose some of the value out of it. So we anticipated that near surface we would not necessarily see very good mineralization and very good material, and that was the case, but the depth to which we expected to see poor material and weathering was much less than has been the case. So that's been very encouraging from that point of view. The other issue in terms of the open pit, the other thing that is significant, as my geologists love pointing out, is that this is an open pit made for mining engineers. With respect to all the mining engineers who may be listening, the geologists tell me that you can see the difference between waste and what's mineralized. So the mining engineers should have no difficulty in mining it. And that actually is very encouraging. It's quite distinct, the mineralization.
Right. Mark, any further questions from?
Yes. Well, what I'd like to do is sort of encourage anyone who's watching to sort of put questions. I can still see them coming in, and we'll see what sort of pops up. Right, one question's come in here. I'll bring it up. So we've got: how long are you expecting the trucks to be stocked at the borders? Has this already been an issue previously?
Wow. You know, logistically, and there was reference made to logistics coming into Zimbabwe, that was a problem. And the problem was that the plant itself was imported in a CKD format, a completely knocked down format, but specified as a plant. And a lot of the components of a plant, when looked at individually, would have attracted duty. But when looked at as a plant as a whole, they did not. And we did have many long discussions with import and customs officials to get to a point where it was accepted that all parts of this knockdown system represented one plant that should not attract duty. So that was a lot of the difficulty associated with the borders and logistics. The other issues were that during the closed or during the holiday period, the movement of abnormal loads is difficult. And some abnormal loads just can't be moved and can't be on the roads at some times.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Another question that came in here, which you probably can't talk to, but I'll ask you anyway. Have Prem been approached by more off-takers?
Yeah, I don't mind talking to that one. I don't mind saying, frankly, that I think that at the moment, the state of the market is that any spodumene you have that you can sell or are prepared to sell will be bought. And the answer is definitely yes. Mark, it's worth expanding on that. Excuse the vehicles in the background.
Yeah, the vehicles
I'm sorry.
in the background there.
We're at a mine site.
Yes.
Apologies to everybody. I think the point that I wanted to make is that with the demand for spodumene and petalite and other minerals into the lithium hydroxide and battery sector, the normal market that pegmatites have always supplied into, which is the ceramics industry. The ceramics industry is now in desperate short supply, and there are some parts of the ceramics industry that are really are saying to me, price doesn't matter. Can you please supply technical grade of spodumene, for example, or whatever it might be? So is there demand elsewhere? Are other people looking? Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Just on that point, of course, the agreement, as I understand it with Zulu, is they are entitled to 50% of the offtake until the loan is repaid. Is that correct?
100% until the loan is repaid.
Sorry, 100% until the loan
Yes.
is repaid, and then 50.
Yes, ultimately for extended production, 50 as well.
So then the other 50, presumably, that they could want to increase, or you could sell that somewhere else.
It's subject to competitive market conditions as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's a lot of latitude in terms of what we can negotiate when it comes to that part of the production that is ours to deal with.
Okay. And a question that's come up here that's quite timely actually, how long, if we meet the allocation for Zulu, do we repay the loan for the plant?
How long will it take to repay it? Depends on the spodumene price, and it depends on our operating costs. Sorry not to answer the question directly, but if we, to give you an idea, if we are able to ship 4,000 ton of spodumene a month, and we're able to get a price of $4,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever the price may be, operating cost, I can't predict ours, but in time, I believe it will fall to the same kind of vicinity as others, which is going to be significantly lower than $1,000 a ton is our forecasts. That'll give you an idea of sort of kind of where we can go.
Okay. Well, I see a question coming here regarding tax. Are you able to talk to what would be the likely tax levy applied by the Zim government with regarding to generated revenue?
Look, there's normal corporate tax, and Zimbabwe's rate, I think, is 28, somewhere like that, whatever it is. It's not bad. And then there is a royalty associated with the mineral. The royalty is 5%. That has always been costed in. It's part of the MMCZ package,
okay.
Which is associated with export.
Okay. And are there any conditions imposed upon PREM on requests for taking other offtakes?
By the government? No.
I think in general.
In general, no.
There are no conditions. So you're free.
We're pretty well. We really can trade as we wish. I mean, there is obviously a lot of concern in Zimbabwe, rightly so, that there should be no transfer pricing issues, and PREM would not embark on that kind of thing in any event. So there's compliance issues and repatriation of funds issues and so on and so forth. A lot of those issues that we deal with, but that's in the normal course of business.
Okay. Well, Tony, do you have any other points? I can see a lot of questions coming in. We are going to talk on the section on the pit and the resource at some point, but before we move on to that, maybe just a few more questions.
Just a comment on spodumene. I don't know if you noticed, George, today was, I think, the first time that spodumene price, the spot price, actually went up in China. So it's nice to see that the lithium carbonate price has come down and is now bottomed and is coming back up. And spodumene, for the first time in I think 3 months, is just risen today. So it'll be interesting to see what price you eventually get. And the other thing of note, the head of Leo Motors in China has come out and increased his prediction for the percentage of cars in China by the end of 2025 that will be electric. And he says it'll be 80% of cars in China by December 2025 will be electric. And if he's right, that is going to be a tremendous acceleration in demand for electric and for lithium. So at the moment, the market doesn't know which way things are going to go with the pricing, but more and more people are thinking lithium and spodumene is going to go back up.
Well, Tony, I can't predict quite where it's going to go, but I will say this, that I think that the differential between the carbonates or hydroxides or whatever it was and spodumene was exaggerated. So the fact that some of those prices have come off doesn't surprise me. And I think that the supply of spodumene is constrained and is going to stay that way for a while. I think that in the medium to longer term, the price will come off and it will settle. But you know, if you look at as a guideline, the bigger Australian producers of spodumene, these guys have got OPEX in the region of $400 to $600 a ton. I don't think there's any reason why Prem can't and Zulu can't target that kind of number as well in time. So even when this price does come off, as it will, I think, hope it doesn't, but as I believe it will, I think that the margins from a longer term perspective are going to be very, very good in this business, and I think are going to remain where they are for some time.
Do you have any more, Tony, or are you good for now?
It's just one question on the plant. Is we talked about what's 4,000 tons a month. George, if things are looking good over the next few weeks, will you be with your hat on thinking, what do I need to order to boost things for later in the year? You knew that question was coming.
I've been thinking about that for 6 months already.
Yeah. What's your time scale on things? Do you think by Christmas you might be boosting the plant with more equipment, or earlier than that?
I don't know. I don't know. There are parts of this plant that have capacity. I think that the next boost here is going to come when we sort out our tantalum circuit, and that's a significant revenue producer as well as we go forward. Our flotation equipment and plant as we have it here, there are components of it that probably have a 6-month lead time. There are other components here that are oversized, our compressors, our electrics, our power generation, a lot of that. And then the other thing that cuts time dramatically is the amount of civils that we've done. You know, just jumping back a little bit into things that were spoken about earlier, we tend to underestimate sometimes the amount of civil construction that has to occur. It's one thing having a plant as we see behind me standing and operating. It's another thing to get the site leveled, then to get platforms built, then to get plinths cast, then to get the power in, then to get the water in, to get the dam built, to get the tailings built, and so on. Those are massive, massive undertakings. So a lot of that being reasonably in situ and with reasonable ability to expand will also help to accelerate sort of future developments that come here.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I've seen another couple of questions that are coming in. Are you thinking of using other mines close to your mine that do not have a processing plant to process their feedstock through your mine?
Yeah, well, I've already got a pile of ore sitting here that was delivered by somebody else outside of our EPO wanting us to process it. I told him it was a bit early, but he insisted on delivering it anyway. So I said, that's fine, it can sit here and we'll when we get to it, we'll process it and see what value we have out of it. So that gives you a very positive answer to that one.
Okay, excellent, thank you. There was another question that I had before we came here. It's regarding the stockpiles, sorry, the spoils, even the spoils. Do you have an idea what you could get from the spoils?
I'm not quite sure I
So,
follow.
okay, what do you hope to get from the spoils, and when do you hope to process this capacity to increase production? Is that the spoils that have been, because the ore is currently coming up from the pit, isn't it?
Yes, look,
So-
let me then, I think the context of this is in terms of the sorters that will be sorting spodumene-rich ore from mica and lepidolite-rich ore. And the answer to the question is that in time, there will be secondary product and valuable product in lepidolites and in micas, in tantalums, and so on. I anticipate doing a lot of work in that area. I can't give any idea from a revenue perspective at this stage.
Okay, you are correct. That is like the context of that question, that the spoils that are coming off. Tony, do you have any others that you've picked up on? Because we will move on at some point to talk about the pit and of course the resource that people want to know about. But anything from you, Tony, that you're picking up on before I move on?
No, it's. I mean, the only other question on the plant is, but it links to the resource. Can you see us having a second plant at some stage, George?
I'm not trying to avoid that question. In fact, I believe that as we go forward, this plant will expand dramatically. I really do. I think that's where this is going to go. I think there's a lot of scope to develop this and expand it. Will it be a second plant here? No, but you know, we also have a little joint venture in some lithium claims in Matari, the Matari block, where we're in a 50-50. Would I love to build another plant like this there? Yes, of course. So, you know, maybe there'll be another one, maybe here, maybe somewhere else.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll move on and we'll talk about the resource now, because of course that is very important. Before we do that, I'm going to just run a little video. It's already been out, I think, on socials, but it's all about the pit, and it gives us a chance just to have a bit of a drink. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Well, there we are. What a video that was. Lots of blasting going on. And as we were watching that video, George just showed me a video on his phone of a recent blast that was done not so long ago, which was pretty impressive. I'm not sure I'll be able to capture any blasts on camera while I'm here. But I mean, generally, George, let's talk about the pit then. I haven't been down there yet. Our plan is to go down there tomorrow and also look at the dam. And I obviously haven't seen any ore coming up yet from the pit either. The dumper trucks are all there at the top waiting. Is that? And I think that's because it's a long weekend, isn't it?
It's a long
Monday, yeah. So that'll start again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So tell us about the process. Is that all working smoothly in terms of getting the ore and getting it loaded and bringing it up to the plant?
Look, it is. The initial stages of any of these pit operations involve quite a bit of preparation. So there's a fair amount of stripping going on. There's a fair amount of surface waste that needs to be removed. Some of the blasting that's been done so far has been removing some of that. And that's exposing, as I said earlier, a very competent looking ore body. In fact, the first time that we blasted ore, and I walked into the pit, it was almost as though you could draw a line between waste material and pegmatite. So that was very encouraging. The strike is known. We've subsequently done a significant amount of additional trenching across the surface, which has given us a lot more confidence in the near surface areas. Historically, our drilling had really intersected mineralization from maybe 50 plus meters below surface. With the extent of the deep trenching we've now done and this initial work in the pit, we can see that it stretches right to surface. Okay. And it's wide, and it's what we wanted.
So I mean, in terms of getting continuous feed to come through, because it's great that today the milestone with the spodumene coming off the end there, but of course you do need continuous feed, don't
Yep.
you? No problems in the short term with that, I guess.
No.
Not at all.
No, and in fact, this ore body, as we've exposed it, is conforming so accurately to the geological model that was done of this that I don't anticipate any particular difficulties going into the future.
Okay, excellent. Well, what we can so let's just paint the picture of where we are. Excuse me, at the moment down there. So you have the open pit, and the ore is being, you're blasting, which is
Yep.
breaking up rock, and that's being
Yep.
loaded to come up here.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. But there's also ongoing exploration work
Yes.
as well on the strike. Is
Yes.
that to find out just how big this whole thing is, or what is?
Yeah, look, we're working all the time to establish how much bigger this thing is going to get, and it is going to get bigger. Within the pit, as every blast hole is drilled, we collect sample material. Before we actually mine, we collect sample material. So we develop a very good picture of the bench that we are going to mine from as we are preparing and as we are mining. We like to know what grade we're expecting in the plant and so on. This is very early stages into this. There's a lot of fine tuning that has to be done, as with the operation of the plant, as with our laboratory that we're sitting in to start getting results flowing through quicker. All of that is a work in progress there as well. But at the same time, out of the pit, there are exploration activities. And I will show you areas where we've exposed already, completely remote from this pit, nothing to do with historic resource statements or estimates, where we've exposed additional significant spodumene-rich pegmatite material.
Okay.
So I think that the long term of Zulu and of this plant and of availability of ore and so on, all generally looks very good at the
Generally
moment.
looks very good.
Yep.
I mean, life of mine, can you say anything on? I mean, of course we're waiting on the DFS, aren't we, which will allude to the life of mine.
Yes.
And of course we've got different levels of resources. There's lots of information in there,
Yes.
indicated,
Yes.
measured. I mean, when can we expect to see a DFS?
just dwelling on that for a moment, this plant behind us deals with a lot of the issues that a DFS would normally deal with. Like, what is the process? Does it work?
Yes.
This, that, and the other thing. So this plant answers a huge amount of that. The other components, there are a lot of them, of the DFS include things like mining, rate of mining, ability to mine, cost of mining, in situ ore body, definition input, resource estimates, etc., etc. And that's the other component that will follow, and that will lead to an eventual estimate of life of mine. I have to say that I haven't published an updated resource statement, as we know. We can have a separate discussion on that, reasons for it, and I think there are some very compelling reasons for not doing it at this stage. But in terms of what we know we have, I would be surprised if this plant doesn't have I don't know, it'll be here in, I don't know, 10, 15 years time.
Okay.
If we just left this thing as it is. I mean, we'd originally, the only published resource that we have is the 20 odd million tons. That in itself gives us a huge life of mine on this project.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is here for a long time.
So the exploration work that's going on is really to help you see what might be coming up to the plant, but also to build on the resource and get how long this might be here for.
Absolutely.
The RUS, as it's known, the resource, it comes up every time I see the comments here. Sure. When are we getting a RUS? When are we getting a RUS? When are we getting a RUS? I mean,
okay. So let me
from
then
my
add
point
this.
of view, I personally don't think we should get too hung up on it.
No,
we've got a producing plant here that's going to be generating revenue, but people want to know about it. I mean, we do need feed. But go on, what can you tell me about the RUS?
Look, I also, and I understand that. Okay, let me go in a little bit more detail. In the pit at the moment, we've exposed the two principal spodumene-rich pegmatites that we expected to expose. Between them, there is some waste material, and what I'm looking to have to try and achieve at the moment is to understand the extent of the waste material between these two ore bodies, the effect of the sorters that I have, how we can mine, whether we're mining both of these ore bodies simultaneous and then using the sorters to differentiate waste and so on. Now that's going to give me a much better indication of the grade that I can expect from this pit into the plant. I want to understand that, and I then want to fine-tune a resource statement linked to life of mine that allows for that, and I think that would be more meaningful. That's the one component. There's another component to this as well, and that is that with these sorters, with the UV sorters that we will be using, and those are not installed yet, that's still to come. At the moment, I'm only using XRT sorters. With the UV sorters themselves coming in, it's going to give me confirmation that I don't need to apply cutoff grade. Now, the moment I don't apply a cutoff grade, the overall resource grade may be lower, but the tonnage that one can bring into your resource statement is so significantly enhanced that it far and away offsets. So I think that those are the important components to link into the life of mine and whole overall resource statement scenario.
Okay.
So forgive me for not going any further with it, that for the moment.
Okay, well what I'll do is I'll bring Tony in now. He's itching to get in, so Tony, come on.
I can hear him in my left ear.
Right, George, can I just clarify? Are you sort of coming out with the sort of rough figure 10 to 15 years life of the mine? Is that just based on the drilling that you've done to date, so that it doesn't take into account what drilling you may get in further areas as you extend down the strike and when you go into the EPO? Is that correct?
No, Tony, the only thing I'm concerned with defining right now is specifically what sits right here that we're mining right now.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, what we're sitting behind with here and what I see in the pit, we're going to be here long after you're going to have to replace a hip for me or something like that. How's that?
A long time then. Yeah. So, George, can you give us an idea of what the size of this escapes me and many people? So you've got an area of Zulu's been drilling. You've got a strike. What percentage of the strike is in the pit at the moment?
Oh wow. What percentage of the immediate strike that was part of the original resource we looked at? Less than 50%. Less than 50%.
And it is correct. The strike
Much
just
less.
seems to keep going on and on, and we haven't got to the end of the strike, have we?
Tony, yes and no. Pegmatites are strange things. They meander and wander, and they change shape, and they change dip, and they get thicker and thinner, and they appear in strange places because they were put in place a couple of billion years ago. And it's for us to go and discover where these things are. Yeah. I believe there's a hell of a lot more upside. The overall geology of Zulu and of our EPO says to me and says to our geos, there's much, much more to come. And that is what we're experiencing with our ongoing exploration outside of what we're mining right now. Where we'll visit and other areas that we'll go and look at are outside of this pit. Yeah. So whilst it may not be a continuous strike, there are many more pegmatites, both within bordering our pegmatite, our EPO area, and so on, that need to be fully developed and fully explored.
Well, George, on that, you've been concentrating on getting this plant up and running. This drilling outside of the pit and drilling the EPO, will you let us, apart from saying in an RNS you're going to drill a lot of the EPO area in 2023, will we get an idea of this extra drilling and what you plan and how many rigs, and will it accelerate, and is it going to be 10,000 meters, 30,000? It would be nice at some stage to get an idea of the plan for the rest of the year.
Yes, I understand that, and the plan not only in relation to Zulu, but also in relation to some of the others. I mentioned briefly the Matari claims area, the lithium claims area there, and I know that first samples and so on from that area are in laboratories at the moment. Hopefully that'll be more results coming out fairly soon. That area borders on the Sabi Star mine that is under construction right now. So we literally are right on the border of where other people know that they have sufficient material to build a mine and to build a plant. So there's not just Zulu, there's that, and there are some other assets in Prem that I also intend during the course of this year to deal with.
I mean, you've hinted at this Li3, and you seem quite excited about it. Without constraining you, do you see a sort of a DFS for that area, or do you see maybe the same thing you've done here at Zulu, is that you drill a little, get excited, and just go for another mine?
I think that there's a lot of impetus to do the same again.
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Tony, there's a lot of impetus to do the same again. There are a lot of people behind this thing, and on the LR3 side of this as well, who are dead keen to see us do the same thing again.
Well, looking at the success you're starting off today with here, you can understand why any partners would want to partner you somewhere else. It would, you've delivered something no one could believe you could do.
Yeah, I'm thinking of putting them onto some kind of a fee structure and charging them a royalty.
Great. Well, I'll just pick up a couple of questions. Anyone who wants to put them in on the live, do that. The one I noticed that was sent to me earlier was how much tonnage is being blasted in a normal day and then being transferred up to sorting?
Okay, so the front end feed that we're anticipating is 140 tons an hour.
Okay.
And the overall monthly anticipated feed is of the order of 70,000 tons a month.
Right. Okay, so 70,000 tons per month being blasted and brought up to the plant.
What we blast is a lot more. What we mine is a lot more. That 70-odd thousand tons is run-of-mine material taken to the plant. If I think about what you need to strip, and your waste factor, near surface, the stripping ratio will be between 2 and 3 to 1. Overall, it'll be slightly higher than that, and it'll verge closer to 5 to 1 eventually, which is still not a bad stripping ratio. So that'll give you an idea.
Okay.
In this past month, I'm just trying to think, I saw the certificate. Was round about I think round about 70, 80,000 ton in total moved, but it will go up.
Okay.
We will be looking, I mean, if I give it to you in cubic meters, we will be looking at somewhere of the order of 100,000 cubic meters a month, there or thereabouts, run of mine or included and waste.
Okay. Thank you. In terms of drilling, how much drilling have you done recently? I mean, it's an awful lot, isn't it?
Historically, I mean, here at Zulu, all in all, it was around about 38,000 meters.
And how much have you done in the last year?
Huge amount of that was done in the last year.
Yeah.
Massive amounts. In the last year, I'd have to go and sit and look, but I can more than 50% in the last year.
More than 50% of that in the last year. And do you plan to go and...
We're drilling at the moment. I've got a rig on site at the moment.
You want to aim for this a similar amount of meterage?
I don't know that I want to set a target just yet on that. That's going to be results driven and plant driven, and
sure.
I don't know which I want to do first, or the whole upside potential.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have spodumene produced and lots of money.
Yeah, I agree. And the drilling, is that going on in the pit, or is that in the EPO? Or you're not?
No, the drilling is outside of the pit.
In the EPO?
It's within the EPO.
Within
yes.
the EPO,
yes.
okay. And yeah, so the drilling that you're doing, that's all costed for, and then it's going ahead as you'd like it to go ahead. Okay.
Well,
I see.
can I come in
there's
there?
a question that's come in. Please do, Tony. Yeah.
George, the drill results in the scoping study, you averaged around about 1.06%, but in the recent RNSs, you seem to be hitting, and maybe I'm just an optimist, but percentages which were looking at 1.25, 1.35, and your average to me seemed to have gone up in time, and the length of the meters, 30 meters, 40 meters, 50 meters. Have you been really encouraged by the drill results this year that you've been getting?
Tony, I've been very encouraged by the drill results, but don't let that necessarily be the overall guide to whatever a resource statement is going to have. Because if you include the entire pegmatite width, the heavily mineralized sections tend to be closer to the core, and it starts fading away as you get to the outer sections of a pegmatite. When you average out over the whole pegmatite, it will drop that grade. But that takes us back to the fact that we have the UV sorters and the ability to target the spodumene within the pegmatite, and hopefully on that basis to be able to increase what we're feeding to the plant and be less concerned with trying to track a high grade area within a pegmatite. Rather just recognize the pegmatite and put all of that through the plant.
Yeah, and you mentioned the resource again. George, when you come out with the resource, most people don't quite understand what's inferred, indicated, measured. Will you be able to give us spodumene equivalents so that the average person like me can fully understand it?
I am hoping and targeting to be able to go in that direction. So in other words, let me take a typical resource that may be published. It may be published at a grade of 1.2% or whatever it may be. But of that 1.2%, one does not know how much of that lithium is contained in spodumene and how much is in lepidolite or petalite or some other mineral. That is not what is said. So what I'm hoping to be able to do is to say, this is what we have, and this is in spodumene. So if somebody, I mean, there are others that I know of where you'd have a 70-30 mix of petalite and spodumene, and you'd be seeing an overall grade of 1.2, 1.3. The actual amount of spodumene is significantly lower than 1.2. And I'm hoping to be able to come out and be able to say that this is the spodumene component and what we therefore expect to see from a potential revenue perspective.
No, that's
Okay,
great.
excellent.
That will be helpful, I think, for investors and understanding it and the value. And yes, we just wait for the resource. But you're pretty confident with the resource, are you, George?
I'm completely confident in terms of the geological model that tells us where the pegmatites are and how big the pegmatites themselves are and the estimated tonnage of the overall pegmatite bodies. I have no issues in terms of that. In terms of the breakdown within the resource of how much is spodumene, how much is a mica, a lepidolite, or a whatever it might be, that's largely where the work is, coupled to trying to remove any dilution in grade attached to waste material that may occur between the pegmatite ore bodies.
But you think George? Sorry, George, you have said previously, haven't you, that it is spodumene rich. So, do you think compared to other mines in Zimbabwe,
I've said that again.
We're pretty good?
I think we compare well.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too drawn in terms of others' mines and so on, but I think that we compare well.
Right. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, Tony. We might come back in a moment. I do just want to rattle through some questions here, so I'll just take you out for a few seconds so you can have a breather. A question that came in here, very simple one, George. Are our Chinese partners happy with progress? So are Shuzhou happy with the progress that they're seeing?
I think they're happy with the progress in the plant that's been built. I think they're a little frustrated, as am I, that I haven't been able to ship any earlier.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Have you had any approaches to buy out Zulu?
If there was, let me answer it this way: if there was a formal, properly substantiated approach that we considered we should look at, it would be made known to shareholders immediately.
Yeah. Okay.
So, are there a lot of people who talk to us? Yes. Do I have to keep a lookout for cars driving past here with Chinese occupants? Yes.
Okay.
Sorry to put it that way.
Interesting.
But that's a fact.
Okay, that's interesting. I have a question here. License to operate is essential, and one aspect of this is the safety and environmental performance. What is the current performance and targets?
Well, compliance. Sorry to answer it that way. We have a set of regulations that we need to comply with. Our environmental certificate has been issued with a stringent set of conditions attached to it that cover tailings, cover all aspects of the operation. It's like 3 full-scale pages of different requirements and conditions. Yes, we do what we can to comply, and we do what we can to mitigate where there may be issues that arise. And there are from time to time, I mean, as in all operations.
Okay.
But we're pretty quick at getting on top, and I've got a new health and safety officer here who is also quite a good nag.
Okay. Your drilling, is it in-house or is it outsourced?
No, it's outsourced.
It's outsourced.
I don't want to own rigs.
You don't want to own rigs. Okay, okay. I have a question coming up. George Roach said shipment will take place within a week to 10 days, but the agreement. Yeah, okay, sorry, that's just someone clarifying my apologies. That's not actually a question.
That's what I want to see happen. It's again.
And there were no penalties from the agreement.
There aren't penalties at the moment, not on shipment.
Okay, excellent. Okay. I see a question here. What will you do with the other minerals? Can you sell them to someone else, or are you tied to Shuzu until the loan is fully paid? We've kind of covered that, haven't we, a little bit?
The only tie that Shuzu has relates to spodumene, not to tantalum, not to lepidolite, not to anything else. It's only to tantalum.
Any plans for dividends?
Sorry, only to spodumene. I can't wait to pay a dividend.
You can't wait to pay a dividend. Excellent. I'm sure people will be very pleased with that. In terms of your sort of vision, George.
Yes.
I mean, I feel a bit bad asking you that because, you know, what an achievement we are here at today. But do you have a vision for the next 5 years? I mean, I don't know how to. This is a great vision that's been achieved, but I mean, can we go further beyond the production plant, beyond the first stage here? I mean, what would you like to see? I mean, would you like to see it just grow and grow? Would you like to see it be sold? Would you want to pay dividends to shareholders? Maybe certain things that you're perhaps wanting to achieve rather than a vision, because a vision or a dream is perhaps hard to articulate.
Look, I'd like to see, I mean, you know, you're starting to verge into other areas now. I'd like to see that this company survives. I'd like to see that it's able to attract some more great people to come and work in this company and eventually to succeed me and keep this thing going. I'd like to see an expanded board of directors. I think that we're very limited in terms of that.
Okay.
I'd like to see that Prem shareholders benefit from some of the other projects that we have as well. I think that things that we haven't touched on other than the Matari lithium claims, but there are other projects as well, and I think that there are opportunities that I want to exploit to try and give a benefit to Prem shareholders from some of those other projects.
Excellent.
So those are some of the strongest focuses I think I have.
Okay, thank you. A question here, when can we expect to receive the full EPO mining license?
Well, I think what we're talking about is the exclusive mining license.
The exclusive mining license.
I'm just trying to remember the exact terminology for it. Yes, that's been drawn. We've set out the boundaries that we want. That has been drawn, and I believe is with the ministry at the moment.
Okay, so it'll come.
I don't anticipate a problem. I really do not.
You don't anticipate a problem. Excellent. Okay. I've seen a couple of people asking, are you going to? I think it's add to your current shareholding.
Am I going to
add to your current shareholding in Prem? Buy more shares, effectively. Well, you can't say, can you? I mean,
I can't say, but you know, maybe at this stage of my life, I need to start thinking about getting some other people involved in this company as well.
Maybe. Maybe you do.
Maybe I should. Maybe that's where I dramatically should go.
Indeed. Okay.
You know, and expand the company. I really want to see the company grow and benefit for the sake of shareholders.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know that, you know, being reflective for the moment. I first registered the company that is now Premier African Minerals in 2007. It's a long time.
Yeah. Oh.
I haven't caught too many fish in the last couple of years either.
Yeah. Well, you must have plans to, you know, wind down at some point. I mean, you know, these are maybe getting
Am
a bit.
I allowed to?
Well, I don't
I'm
know
listening to some of your questions. I don't know whether I'm allowed
whether
to.
you're even allowed to. Yeah, I don't know. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Tony again now, just maybe a last few
Yes.
comments on this, and then we'll touch a little bit on some of the logistics and the route to market, payment stages, and then we will sort of wrap up. So, Tony, I'll let you take over for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, George, it is amazing what you've achieved with quite a small board, and you know, you do look like you need more people on the board. And now you've got this colossal enterprise. You would think that, you know, you should attract, you know, other directors and other people to what you think's needed.
I'm already working in that direction because I believe that's exactly where this should go.
Great.
Okay. Anything more from you, Tony? Are you picking up anything from any of the groups or anything else?
No, I think so far everyone's been very pleased with what we've heard, and it's been detailed, which is great. You know, there's obviously other questions that I think you're going to come to the area of the dam and the community, but we'll wait.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
On that one.
We can move on to that. I'll be looking at the dam and the community things tomorrow. We can ask a few questions on that. I think a lot has been covered here. So thank you all for being quite, you know, respectful on the chat there, because that's made my life a little bit easier, and some good questions have come in. George, on the logistics then, in terms of getting when the trucks come and take it away, is there a staged payment as it moves like along the logistics path to get to where it's going to end up effectively?
Terms will be a site letter of credit, and it will be a major percentage payable on the site letter of credit with the final settlement on turnout.
On turnout?
Yeah.
Which is, what's turnout?
Turnout is when it arrives in final port of destination.
Okay.
And it's then subject to a further inspection. So I think the figure is 90% on initial letter of credit, and then the balance on turnout.
Okay. So there should be no issues in that whatsoever then once the trucks come and.
Yeah, you know, one says there shouldn't be. You're shipping a product that's got a moisture content of between 8 and 10%. It may well lose some of its moisture. You may well therefore lose some weight. But if you lose some moisture and you lose some weight, you should end up with a higher grade of spodumene.
Yeah.
You know, so, but there'll always be a bit of backwards and forwards with that.
Okay.
But it's in regard to a small percentage of the selling price, not a big chunk of it.
Okay. Well, let's come to the last segment here. This is, of course, on the community work that's been going on and the dam. Now, tomorrow, as I say, we're going to take a visit to the dam properly.
Yeah.
I saw it at night and I was very impressed. I mean, really impressed. We drove up in the vehicle and there's this huge wall in front of us, and George said behind that is full of water. It's quite daunting actually to be sat in a vehicle. We actually got out of the vehicle to take pictures. And we'll see it in its glory tomorrow. I mean, you're very pleased with that, aren't you? I mean, you were very excited to show me that. And that is, of course, the dam is there to provide the water, which is paramount to feeding this plant, but also for the local community as well, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think there'll be local community benefits coming out of it. I mean, the facts of the matter are that you come into this part of the world and build a mine here, and there is nothing. We've got no mains power, there's no grid power. So we've got a set of generators sitting here at the moment. Hopefully it'll go to solar and then eventually grid linked in time. There's no water supply, no municipality for it.
Yeah.
None of those things exist. You've got to do it all yourself. I think as we were driving up to where the dam is, I actually said, well, there's our quarry. So we quarry our own stone as well. And there's our sand mine.
Yeah, you pouring
so
the
this
stone
is
for the
kind of how the
concrete.
thing goes.
Yeah.
So you do everything. You have to do everything.
Yeah.
It goes back to the civils side of this, which is so dramatic in terms of getting this done. The plant is just one component. You get in a box, gets bolted together, but the rest of it.
Honestly, I can't state it enough, and I really hope that the media that we've been putting out can try and encompass, and the stuff that will come later, the size of this. But You're right, that's only a small part
Yeah.
of it. You drove me down the road to the dam that's been completely built by Prem, and it's graded regularly.
Absolutely right. It's a 5-kilometer drive to the dam, and the last 4 kilometers, we sent an excavator because there was nothing. And the excavator broke out a road for us.
Yeah.
Till we eventually got to where we were. Today we've got a crane sitting there hauling concrete and stone up to the top, and it goes on and on and on.
And you were telling me on the drive back up about sort of the further community work, almost like helping them with sort of farming as well, and maybe helping them to get into sort of a bit of,
We will. You see, so many mines, and the mining industry generally is a selfish industry. We're focused on life of mine, and let's do what we can, the minimum for life of mine. Closure, the minimum you can set aside for closure and so on, and then we can go. And we don't realize that at the end of life of mine or at closure, you have a community that has lost its source of revenue, its source of stability, and all the rest of it. So part of what we're trying to do with things like the dam is just one step in that direction. There are multiple others, is to try and leave a legacy that will survive a mine or survive some other technology that says lithium doesn't matter that much anymore, or whatever it might be. There needs to be other things that will survive. So the dam is just one of them. Our infrastructure and road structures is another. We've gone out of our way to provide better access all round. Some of the communities that have had to move as a result of the construction of the mine now have a permanent house that we're building. There's a whole area we're busy building homes for people. They have decent water access. Historically, it was a bucket and a river. Today, it's a borehole. So those things are there. But then the other thing about areas like this, and it's a rural subsistence agricultural area, is that one needs to understand that what builds lasting infrastructure is not a mine. It's actually agricultural development. And that's been demonstrated throughout the world, all over the place. So to whatever extent we can assist through having this mine in that direction, that will be building for the long-term future that will not go away. Source of water, ability to irrigate, roads to allow you to take your product to market, easy access to other required inputs, whatever they may be. All of those things will come from this. And it's in that direction that there's a big push and a lot of work.
Excellent. And of course, there's the jobs you've created. And do you know the number of people you employ here?
For heaven's sake, we've had 400 plus at
400
one point
plus.
in time employed.
Yeah.
You know, as a dramatic example of this was a little community, this pioneer block with a number of little villages. And there was a school and there was a little shop that had very few things in it. And there was a bottle store, I suppose, where you could go and get your weekend booze or whatever. But there was very little else. And our principle and philosophy is that we only engage and employ people who are from this local community. That's all we do. So that we want people who will work here, take their money and their pay and go home to their home. That's where they must go. And into this community, the changes that we've seen have been quite astounding. And if you think about it, there's probably $150,000, $200,000 a month that suddenly floods, bang, into this environment. It's a life changer.
It is a life changer. And when we arrived, we spoke to your receptionist, Isabel, and she was talking to us, and she said she was so pleased that we were here to sort of cover the story, that Prem were here, because it's her first full-time job. And she's a lady, I guess, in sort of mid to perhaps 30s, not much any prospect in this area. And she actually said that to me quite quickly on, that, you know, it's changed my life, you know, and that's significant. What I want to do, Tony, I'll just bring you, actually, before I bring Tony in, questions are coming up. I have to ask you this. Do you need to raise funds, or will you be okay with the
I've said already that that cash is constrained. That's out in the public domain. We had a lot of people who exercised options recently. They gave us a little bit of money. The next couple of days and couple of weeks will be determinate in terms of that. But I think all I can say is that to the extent that we may or may not, I don't think in the present environment that we're in the same kind of situation we were in 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're producing, there's the plant, it's here. So if there's a requirement to fund an interim gap of a month or whatever it might be, I don't see that necessarily as being anything that it has the same level of significance attached to what it would have had 3 years ago.
Indeed. Okay.
You know.
Thank you. Tony, let me bring you in. Do you have any final sort of thoughts on that? Because we are going to have to wrap up fairly soon because we are hogging everyone's internet here. But I'll let you sort of come in.
And getting cold.
And getting chilly, yeah.
Yeah, just a question on a comparison. You know, Pilbara are the world's biggest spodumene producers, I think 500,000 tons a year. And we're just starting off here at Zulu. Can you envisage we get up to 100, 200,000 tons a year and sort of, you know, maybe get to half the size of Pilbara? Because Pilbara's market cap is at, I think, $14 billion.
Look, I don't know in terms of a direct comparison to somebody else, but in terms of quantity and where we can eventually go in terms of production, I don't think there's too much of a. Or let me put this the other way around. I would like to see us doubling, trebling, quadrupling the production that we're going to be talking about from here, and I think that everything I'm seeing and that I'm looking at tends to give me a level of confidence that that is what we can achieve and where we do need to try to go.
That's fantastic. That really is, George.
Excellent. Well, minutes. We're 1 minute away from having to wrap up our live stream here. What I want to do, I have a list of people to thank. It's just like your wedding day when you want to thank everyone, you always forget. So I wrote down everyone to thank. I want to thank, first of all, everyone watching. Thank you so much. We've had a really good response from all our audience. Everyone's had some very nice questions and everyone's been very respectful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in this evening. I want to, of course, thank Jeffrey from Stark, the CEO there, for joining us this evening. I also want to thank Godfrey, the Director of Prem, for joining us as well this evening, giving us a bit of an insight there into what he does. The team here, you can't see them, but there are a couple of guys here who have been managing all the equipment, the camera switching, the lighting. You can see they've been working very hard, and we're not BBC, we don't have all the super backstage, but they've done a super good job in helping us out here. All of the staff here that have been super friendly to us and very, very, very welcoming to us indeed. Of course, Jabulani as well, who we'll be seeing tomorrow, who will be taking us around the communities. I have to say a big thank you to Ben, the IT guy. Yeah. The IT infrastructure here is phenomenal. I have never seen IT infrastructure so much here. And I have to thank everyone on site here for allowing us to hog the internet exclusively for this live stream tonight. It's made it all very, very special. And of course, I need to thank the Stark guys as well. All the team here at Stark have been extremely helpful with bringing us information, taking us through the plant, and of course, getting this thing up and running and getting that spodumene out. It's been pressed today for the first time. And hang on, I think we can see some spodumene, George.
Wow, what's happened?
I think we can see some spodumene.
Oh my God.
That is a bag of spodumene. Well done, guys. This is all the Stark team, everyone who's worked so hard for months and months and months. Here we are. This is a penultimate day. You're all feeling great,
team,
yeah?
Zulu team.
Can we
the Zulu team here as well?
Can the Zulu team? Can we see some? Can we hold some?
Sure.
No.
Yeah? You want to bring some over for me? We can get up and have a look, maybe.
Yeah, let's go. It's all right. It's okay. Don't open too much. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's wet and muggy.
Oh, it's
still.
wet. Okay, okay.
Still a bit wet and muggy, but there
Okay.
you go.
It's wet and muddy. Okay, okay, okay. Well, we saw
Get off my hands.
we saw that earlier, didn't we? But that is a 1 ton bag. A 1 ton bag of spodumene, George. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a start.
It's a start.
Many, many, many more. Maybe we should frame that one.
We'll get a picture of that. Don't worry, everyone. We will get a picture of that. The bag is actually tied, so we can't get into it. But the spodumene is definitely there. So, I mean, I think we have to wrap up our live stream. We've got a nice shot of everyone here, Peter, so we can see everything that's going on. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Give me a last hurrah. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. And we'll be sure to do more media for the next couple of days that I'm here. But that does wrap up our live stream. We will give the internet back to everyone who wants to probably message their families. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
When I stand here and I think to myself that in September last year, I was standing in the bush. Today, it's a plant. It's a substantial plant that's going to produce substantial amounts of spodumene and is going to generate substantial amounts of revenue. And it's come in 6 months. You're not supposed to do things like this in the mining industry these days. I don't know whether I should be terrified of this or proud of this or quite which way I should think about it. I just know that the number of people, this huge number of people who've contributed so much to turning this piece of bush into that plant and this mine, they all deserve to be lauded. And really, it's a statement for the community, a statement for everybody, a statement for the country, and a statement for the company too.